We are now going to look at one of my favorite features in Dreamweaver for dynamic development, and that is a dynamic table. Now, I know tables are not supposed to be used for page layout. However, for displaying data, it's still one of the best ways to work with data and display it on a web page. And this feature allows you to do it fairly easily. Let's take a look at how we can set up a dynamic table to display database data. I'm going to go over to the server behaviors area, and within the server behaviors, these are those snippets of code that allow you to create a task. But if you need to do a query to pull data out of the database, we move over to the bindings panel. We need to create a query to pull data out of the database, and then we can put that data that's been pulled out into our table. So in the bindings panel, I'm going to create a record set. So hit the plus sign and choose the very first item, record set. This allows us to build our query. Dreamweaver will create all of the code to pull the data out of the database. So I'm going to call this Q display tours. We only have a single connection defined here. The connection stores the database. In other words, which database is it and how does PHP access that database in order to get the data. The table we're going to use is based on our database we have displaying here. So we're going to use the tours table. And within the tours table, we don't want every column. That'd be a little bit much for our web page. What we're going to do is just pull out the data we need. And that is tour name, description, and total days. If I hold the mouse down while I drag down, it helps me select these right in a row. So in other words, I click on tour name, hold the mouse, and drag down. I'm going to sort these based on tour name, ascending order. In other words, alphabetical order. If I test this, you'll see our tours are displayed in alphabetical order, and there are 27 of them. It's important to take a look at how many are created because we need to determine when we set up the dynamic table how many we're going to display at a time. So we'll click OK. Here's our record set. I'll move this little line over so my name will display. And these are the three pieces we pulled out of information from that tours table. Now, the dynamic table, I want to go down in this area. And this dynamic table feature is one that you must be in design view in order to use. You will find that it doesn't always work correctly if you are in code view. So put your cursor where you want the dynamic table to go in design view. And we're going to go up directly under the data tab is a little drop-down arrow, and we want to choose dynamic table. This is going to populate this record set drop-down with whatever record sets are already set up. So you always want to create your record set before you go to display the data in a table. We're going to show 10 records at a time. We have a total of 27. And this is just going to adopt whatever I chose previously. Once the table is created, I can always modify these three settings. So I will click OK, and there's our table. Now you can see we have an extra space here. So I'm going to backspace to clear the space. And you may have some extra space underneath the table as well. If so, go ahead and delete that. I'm just going to put an extra single paragraph down here to make a little space under the table. Now this top row in our table is always going to show the information just as it's listed in our database. So what we want to do is customize that a little bit, make it look a little nicer. I'll make these all capital, add a space between the words. By default, whatever it's named in your database field or column, that is what will be displayed here by default. A quick change to that takes care of it. I'm also going to click in the first cell and drag to the right. And I'm going to hit Control or Command B to make this row bold. That's an accessibility command, so that's always available to you. So Control B as in bold or Command B will convert that entire row to bold text. So let's take a look in Live View. Now, if you don't have Live View, go directly to the browser. Not a problem. I'm going to save these changes. And there is a listing of the first 10 items in our query. So you can see we have A through D for Dive Cosmo. So I have 10 queries being displayed, or 10 pieces of data from our Display Tours query. So how do I access the rest of that information? Well, we're going to need to add some information to this page in order to do that. I'll put it out in the browser just to make sure we have this displaying correctly. And there is the first 10 items of information being returned from our query. We will take this information and we'll show you how to move users between the 3 pages of query data that we have set up through this dynamic table feature. But that is a dynamic table, and creating them within Dreamweaver, they are a great way to display your database data.